Hello and welcome back to another 3 a.m. production video. This is my attempt at a visual podcast where we talk about animation, comic books, Disney. This week we're going to draw our first Disney princess here on this channel. What better Disney princess to start off with than the very first Disney princess, Snow White. So if you follow along, please post a picture of it, what you do in the comments below. I'd love to see it. I posted a link to the instruction lines if you want to start from scratch with me. I've already drawn Dopey and Sneezy there, put together, and we're going to draw Snow White together. With that being said, it's hi-ho, it's off to work we go. I also borrowed this honorary Oscar and the Seven Little Ones. I don't think Disney will notice that it's gone, but let's get to it. Now, the film of Snow White set history in animation because it was the first ever feature-length animated film. A lot of people didn't even believe in the concept of this movie doing so well that it took a lot of effort for Disney to get the money to even make this movie. Without the success of this movie, we wouldn't have things like Pixar or Warner Brothers or any of the other major companies because they all were just creating shorts. But Disney had this idea to take it to the next level. When he was 15 years old, he went and saw a silent version of this fairy tale at a theater, and he was fascinated ever since. It took them about 3 years to make the whole thing, and over 750 artists and 200 million sketches went into this thing. Also started this trend that Disney was going to censor some of the original stories, since the original fairy tale is based off of a Grimm fairy tale, which are very dark and have a lot of themes that would not be appropriate in what we would consider Disney movies today. The success of this movie, he made $8 million in box office. It ended up spearheading him building a larger studio, so that way they could build more projects from this. It got nominated for the Oscar, but unfortunately it didn't win, so the next year, they went ahead and gave him an honorary one in Seven Little Ones. But a little behind the scenes here, when they were doing the voices and trying to come up with the dwarves and things of this nature, like the dwarves originally had very different names, things like Blabby and Baldy and Crabby and Daffy and Lazy and Shifty and Snoopy and so on and so forth. The voice actress for Snow White, she was under a very strict contract that prevented her from doing much acting after the film. The Wicked Queen's voice, she was tasked with doing the evil queen and the old hag. She ended up being asked to do both voices, and she would do one voice, and then she was trying to come up with the voice for the second one. The guys recording the sound weren't, they were trying to figure it out. She's like, hold on, give me a minute. So she leaves, and a few minutes later, she comes back and nails this voice. Like, what did you do? Turns out she just took out her false teeth. Snow White became the first fictional female character to have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In subsequent years, Disney was actually going to make a sequel to this, but it got canceled. It would have been more of a prequel than a sequel. But how the evil queen took over the throne and put Snow White where she was when we first met her. This movie in particular became one of the first 25 films to ever be preserved in the National Film Registry. It was also the most successful version of this particular fairy tale being shown on screen. And mostly still is. Originally, the budget of this movie was only $250,000, but due to various delays and budget issues, it became $1.5 million, which is a huge amount of money for the time. All the bankers and the other studios, when they would talk about this movie behind Walt's back, they would call it Walt Disney's Folly. Before they were going to give her black hair, she was actually going to be represented as a blonde. But the Magic Mirror describes her beauty in great detail to Evil Queen. Alas, she is more fair than thee, lips red as a rose, hair black as ebony, skin white as snow. When they were animating the dwarves, they had a pretty easy time of trying to copy certain things because, you can kind of keep some of the same characteristics. But they also had to find a way to develop a personality for each dwarf. When it came to Dopey, they actually added a skip, hop, and a step extra into his animation, just to give him that little quirky side to him that none of the other dwarves have, which the animator who came up with that was not the most popular animator. After all, the animators had to copy that. The dwarves' cottage, they threw little Easter eggs of, there's carved animals in all of the furniture. There was a sequence that was originally supposed to be in the movie with Dopey where he swallows a bar of soap. Now, it didn't end up in the movie, but they ended up reusing that footage in Plausible the Impossible, which was a little film that Walt put together much later, where they were explaining pencil tests and certain things in animation of how they went about it. They wrote 25 songs for this movie, but only 8 of them were used. This was also the first movie to ever have a release soundtrack for purchase. Now, one of the tricks of trade of animation is rotoscoping, which is basically where you take real footage and loosely copy those movements into the character. So for dancing sequences, Disney does it all the time. It's kind of the same principles of mocap, just the earlier version. But specifically for the Evil Queen, the animators preferred just doing her stuff from scratch, and that found that if they did it from scratch, it added more of a devoted attention to her depiction, that she became more real, more complex in that performance. Other fun little Easter egg that they threw in there is when the Evil Queen's mixing her potions, one of those little ingredients is mummy dust. During the late Middle Ages, they thought it was common for Egyptian mummies to be grinded up into a powder that was then sold to be used as medicine. When Disney saw the Evil Queen in his head, he told the animators, "I envisioned somebody who's kind of like Lady Macbeth, but also the big bad wolf, with her beauty being sinister and mature, plenty of curves, but she becomes ugly and menacing and scheming." Now, the castle that they used for inspiration was in Germany, and subsequently also was used as inspiration in Cinderella and Aurora. Even though the movie takes place in Germany, if you look at her spellbook, the lettering is actually written in Italian. Now, Snow White being seemingly killed at the end of the movie and then resurrected with true love's first kiss starts the cliche called the Disney death, where most characters end up dying but coming back at the last second. They would use live models for Snow White. They would give them a similar looking costume to Snow White, as close as they could get it at the time, and they would reenact certain scenes and let the animators just draw what they could see at any given moment, to try to help with the process of following the flow of movement. When they were mixing paints for this movie, it was kind of the first time that anything had been done to this scale. They found out that they couldn't actually mix a really good flesh color. So Snow White is actually painted in makeup for all of the flesh tones, and then it's just regular paint for all of her clothes, which I think is a very clever way, and is one of my favorite fun facts about this movie. Well, I hope you've enjoyed following along. If you did follow along and drew it along with me, please post in the comments below. I'd love to see it. Hope you learned something new about the movie or the characters, process, and animation in general. If you enjoy this kind of thing, please like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate it. Hope you all have a good week, and I'll see you next time.